how do you feel hearing your mom say that? Did that resonate with you?
Well, for me, it didn't resonate with me at all, because I looked at the end result. We were not living well.
With all those degrees, right?
Yeah,
with all the degrees.
yeah.
Right. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, old listeners. Welcome, new listeners. Welcome, Alfonso's listeners, to It's About Time. This is a show dedicated, a podcast dedicated to making it happen. And whatever it is for you, whether it's entrepreneurship, figuring it out, being inspired, trying out something new, transitioning to a new career, whatever it is, we are here to inspire you. And I'm grateful to have this guest with me. And it is about time. We have been trying to do this for quite some time. And when we chatted, we realized how long, in fact, we have been wanting to link up. So
20 plus years.
Oh my God, 20 plus years. I got to welcome you to It's About Time, Alfonso Cuadra. Welcome.
It's about time.
Right? So I love the title for the show, because it's very fitting right now for this reason too. It is about time. And you know what I got to tell you straight off the bat? One time out the gate, the second I asked you if you would make time or if you were available for an interview years ago, you said yes. And it was just us that couldn't do it for all of the other reasons. Pandemic happened. There was things that happened. But your willingness to sit with me and give me your time was instant. And I am filled with gratitude for that. And I want you to know sincerely that showed me that I might be doing something right, because you were so quick to say, whatever you need, I got you. So thank you for making the time, Alfonso.
Well, thank you for having me. You're doing great things, Zeeta. I love what you're doing. I love the podcast, and just glad to be on your platform.
Yeah, man. And so for all of you listening, I want to share with you Alfonso's bio, so you hear why he's such a valuable podcast interview subject today, and just an infectious person. His spirit, his vibe, his light is so bright, and we got to get into it. So I'm going to start with your bio. Alfonso Cuadra is an entrepreneur, speaker, author, success coach, and philanthropist. An entrepreneur of 26 years, at 17 years old, he started a small company that grew to locations across Canada. Born in the late 70s in El Salvador, a country on the road to revolution, Alfonso Cuadra and his family couldn't avoid the turmoil surrounding them. His mother was the head of a newspaper that remained committed to reporting the truth about the corrupt government in power. For that, she was arrested as a political prisoner and sentenced to 40 years. For the first 3 years of her incarceration, Alfonso's family kept him indoors for fear that the government would kidnap him. Thanks to an amnesty law declared in May of 1983, his mom, Zeeta Cuadra, was freed and offered asylum in Canada. Alfonso Cuadra and his family continued to struggle, even though they were now safe in Canada. Coming into a new country as an immigrant, he recalls feeling as though he was very low on the economic scale. Growing up, he was surrounded by crime and drugs. As he got old, however, he created his own mantra, his own philosophy, if you will, success by design. The idea that we are all creating our lives in moments through every decision we make. At the age of 17, he became a father to a beautiful little girl that became his turning point. During that time, he started a clothing business that quickly became successful, and within a few years, he had expanded it across Canada. By the age of 21, he realized the value of real estate and purchased his first multi-unit income property. Mr. Cuadra has been exposed to a variety of commercial, residential, and multi-family property investments and management deals, and featured in business and magazines, newspapers, and TV all over the world, including, most notably, a Reader's Digest did a 7-page profile that was published in 15 countries and in 5 languages in 2009. Since then, he had secured a healthy real estate portfolio. There we go, pointing to it, and you should. Real estate portfolio, maintaining his companies. Alfonso is a dynamic leader, for sure you are, known for thinking outside of the box, and shares his passion through his lectures, workshops, TV, and coaching. You have over 700,000 views on your YouTube station or channel, and you're the host of a viral show called Success by Design, which we are going to dig into right now. Alfonso's story is one of inspiration, determination, overcoming adversity, goal accomplishment, self-leadership, and hope. He is a special gift, absolutely, and his gift is the ability to connect with people and move them forward. Welcome to the show.
Woo! Good to be here. Good to be here.
Welcome.
Now, I give you kudos for your journalism and your research, because before the show, you briefly talked about that intro, and I'm like, where did you find that? And I'm like, you did your research. You definitely did your research. So that's good. It shows that you're a true journalist.
I'll take the compliment. I mean, I didn't get into J school, so I'll take the compliment because they
Yeah.
said I couldn't, but you're telling me I can, and I'll go with your style. How does it feel, like right off the bat? How does it feel to listen to your bio?
Yeah, it's a bit surreal. What left out of that bio is that I went through a dark time in my life at 15. Now, I did talk about a little bit about the war and what I had gone through, and I missed a lot of educational opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And so by the time I came to Canada, I tried to integrate into the school system. I had a tough time. Eventually got really frustrated, dropped out of high school at 15,
Okay.
and ended up on the streets. I was on my own, dark, destitute, with the wrong crowd, depressed about myself, my life. I had no self-confidence.
May I
And
ask,
yeah, go
was
ahead.
your family or a support person, anybody in play at that time to notice, like a teacher? Did anybody try to reach out?
I'm sure they did. I mean, people, like, no one's gonna, I mean, a young man, 15 years old, I'm sure there's a lot of people that were willing to help. For whatever reason, I didn't listen, or I didn't know, or I was just in such a dark place that, it was, I don't think anybody could have, supported me the way what I needed, which,
Mhm.
from my point of view, I was just, lacking confidence in myself.
Mhm.
And, having those dark moments, panhandling for change, drugs,
Mhm.
sleeping in park benches and banks.
Mhm.
And Zeeta, if you would have came and tapped me on the shoulder and read that bio to me,
Right.
at 15 years old, and you said, "Don't worry, Alfonso, like this is gonna be your life. This is me coming from the future,
Telling you
and
you got this, you'll be okay.
this is going to be you, and these are all the people you're going to help, and this is all the impact. This is the impact you're going to have on the world." I would have not believed you.
Right. But
Right?
do you also feel that without that experience, you wouldn't be where you are today?
I do feel that. I do feel that way. And when you read when you read that bio, it just affirms to me the power of expansion, right?
Mm. Mhm.
In consistent growth, because what happens as human beings, we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in a year, and sometimes it becomes overwhelming to think about what we can accomplish in the next year.
Right.
We grossly underestimate what can be accomplished in 5. In 5 years, you can go through a full life transformation.
Absolutely.
And in
Absolutely.
fact, all your cells are completely new after 7 years. Don't quote me on the science on this, but
It's true.
every single cell in your body
Is renewed.
is renewed every 7 years or so.
Yeah.
You're a completely new person. And so the question is, who do you want to be at the other side, right? We all go through turmoil. We all go through life experiences. We can't go through life without failure, because we
Right.
learn so much from failure. And sometimes, life, throws us curveballs, and sometimes, like my dark moments, like we've all had dark moments. You probably, like, as I'm sharing that story with you, you probably can think of your own dark moment in your life.
Right.
And
Right.
it's not like one dark moment is worse than the other, because I'm sure there's people that have, worse dark moments than I have,
Mhm.
but we've all felt that way. It's like rock bottom. It's like, you feel helpless,
Right.
and feel like there's no support. And like, the only thing you can do is keep moving forward.
And you can't see yourself coming out of it.
You cannot, like I
And
said,
then,
if you were to tap me on the shoulder at
right.
15, and you were to bring that bio, and you said, "This is going to be you,"
Yeah.
I would say, I don't believe you. And
Right.
so hard for people to think 5 years down the road,
Right.
right? I
Which
mean,
is,
we're going through this pandemic, right? And right now
yes.
people are going through some horrible things.
Mhm.
And some people have expanded during this time.
Right.
We had that conversation, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, where it's like, what have you done in the past year? And you've done really great things. You've expanded through this time.
I made a face because some of it is external to me, right? Having a child is not, just a one person affair, but that has helped to orient me and be grateful during COVID. If I didn't have that experience when I did, maybe I would be going through my very own dark moment now, because I might feel, very trapped or very, unable to see an out. But through seeing her develop, I feel you when you say in your bio, when your child came, that it was like a life altering, changing wake up call, because I'm seeing the joy she sees, not even knowing she's in a pandemic. She has no idea she's deprived, so to speak, of, things. So absolutely that opportunity to mirror what she gets to see as joys is keeping me going, without a doubt, without a doubt.
Yeah. And it can be hard to think about, the other side, right?
Yes.
And so this is the question that I can only speak from my perspective,
Mm-hmm.
right? And back on my YouTube channel, back in March of 2020, I came out and I said, listen, guys, you have to stand in your truth. Number one, how are you going to get through this? Stand in your truth, and accept that life will never be the same again. Right. I said that back in March. I said, accept it.
Right.
Whatever your problems were in 2019, you wish you had those problems.
It's a different set. It's a different set of things moving forward.
Yeah.
Right.
Instead of like resisting or holding back, lean in. Right. And so I encourage everybody to lean in, pivot, whatever you got to do,
Mm-hmm.
and expand, because this is a time for expansion.
And
right?
really showing creativity and showing people that what was once can no longer. Having you face to face would be awesome, but we have to take what we can get. And this might even be amazing moving forward, how technology is in the mix now. For somebody, I'm a bit archaic. I love to do things a little bit more old school, like I still write questions, paper and pen. Like I'm the same way. I still love that process. But if we didn't have, right, I love that process. But if we didn't have access to the technologies we have today, where would we be? We would all be in a much worse headspace, and in general, we would be in a much more detrimental place. So without the pivot, we're hurting ourselves.
Yeah. So you expand, right? You have to think about an expansion, and you cannot think about next year. Right. Every decision that I made for myself back in March was based on my life in 2035, right? Mm-hmm. I said, the decisions I'm making today are going to affect the Alfonso of 2035. And so it's all about having a bigger vision of yourself. At 15 years old,
did you have that vision at 15, right?
I couldn't see tomorrow. See tomorrow, right? I couldn't tell you about tomorrow. But when my daughter was born at 17, I could see 20 years. So it's like, what do I want that 20-year-old
version of yourself?
What do I want my daughter to say at 20 years old about her dad?
Right.
And then it was easy for me to reverse engineer and say, this is what I have to do now.
So basically, a key takeaway is start with the end in mind.
Absolutely.
Right? Start with the end in mind. And it's so funny, I started that just really, really, really recently, because I hear it often, and I know that I need to read the book that really promotes that, train of thought. I haven't read it yet, but just the idea of me re-entering the workforce. Even in our meetings, we're talking about like planning for big activities, and I've piped up and I'm like, okay, guys, why don't we start with the end in mind? And it's like, wait a minute, it's true. We know what we have to do, but why don't we start planning from the end point and then see backwards our timelines and our deliverables? And if we reverse engineer our lives to see 20 years down the road, it really is, you know, manifestation and vision boarding on that level, because we are asking to now fulfill that 20-year vision board, let's say, and now you see all the things you got to get done.
Well, it's like Elon Musk, his vision will outlive him, right? He's got a vision of where he wants to take his company that he won't even be alive to see it
come to fruition. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's like, you know, that's called being a visionary, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, as I continue to grow, and, you know, we get these curveballs, you know, we have to continue to expand and think about, and you know what, this vision can adjust and can change, right? And things can, you know, you can change your mind about how you feel about certain things.
Right.
But at the end of the day, back in March, I said to myself, well, we're going to get out of this for sure, whether it's in a year, 2 years, 3 years.
Right.
So who do you want to be at that, you know, in 3 years from now? What's a person, you know, are you going to be someone that expanded during this time? Or are you going to be someone that contracted during this time?
Right.
I took a lot of slack, you know, in March, because people are like, oh, you don't know, we're going to be out of this by April, by summer.
That was wishful thinking, right? I think a lot of us had that wishful thinking.
And there's nothing wrong with being like positive, but my thing is like, look, you know, this is going to change us forever. So
regardless the length of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know if it's a year, 2 years. I don't have a crystal ball, but all I can tell you is, at the end of this, I'm going to be better than I was going into it.
So I love that you're saying that, because I'm curious to go all the way back to when you're 21 to think about real estate, right? So at 21, I felt I was, you know, doing well, but I definitely wasn't thinking about real estate. And when I see doing well, I felt like I was, you know, creating a journey for myself, a career path that was in media and entertainment and journalism. Like I felt like I was on that pathway, but I wasn't thinking of myself 20 years down the road. I was really thinking of myself, this is what I love to do. That's all I know. Let me do it. So now I want to turn this to you and say, how did a 21-year-old think that real estate, or know that real estate would be, you know, a ticket to economic freedom possibly, or risk taking, or whatever the thought process was? I want to go into that part.
Yeah. So I grew up, you know, with low economic means my whole life. And in fact, in my family, there's cycles of poverty, right? Mm-hmm. Not that people were like destitute, but you know, poor-minded thinking, right? And you know, I grew up in a household where my mom is, you know, very she's an intellectual,
right?
And she believes a lot in puts a lot of value into education,
right? And
you know, she taught me a lot of great things, you know, the things that I carry with me today about being a man, you know, how to carry myself throughout the world, values, integrity, right? I learned a lot of great things, but what she couldn't teach me was financial literacy, how to invest money, or how to start a business, how to sell, how to be a leader, you know, somewhat how to be a leader, but from a running an organization perspective. And so for me growing up, there was so much weight put on the post-secondary education, right? So my mom would say the you'll be judged in your life by your grades, and the best thing that you could do in your life is get a degree. Mm-hmm. And the second best thing would be a master's degree.
Okay.
And the pinnacle of life
is your PhD.
Will be a PhD, you know?
So
and that was...
I need to like interject here, because I don't know if you know this, but I'm actually a career advisor as well.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I work with adult learners, and when a student who's an adult says to me, I'm thinking about going back to school, and they're coming from another country and they may already have a master's and or another degree, my question is, what's the purpose? Not that I don't want them to be in education, but it's what we know to do is just get another degree, and that's going to equal a job, right? Or the
Yeah.
career. And more and more and more, specifically through the pandemic, we're seeing that that may not be the case. How well can you pivot? How well can you do something creative or a hands-on field? How well can you get into something that, you know, a lot of people don't want to do or don't think there's a lot of money in it? But you call a plumber over and you see how much money you make. They make great, like, and it's just this need to retrain our ways of thinking. So how do you feel hearing your mom say that? Did that resonate with you?
Well, for me, it didn't resonate with me at all, because I looked at the end result. We were not living well.
With all those degrees, right?
Yeah,
with all the degrees.
yeah,
Right. Okay.
yeah. We're not living well, and as a kid in school, there was something off. Like I asked the teacher, when I was 11 years old, what's a mortgage? And the answer I got was like, oh, a mortgage is something you get when you're older. And like, I'm sorry, but I'm 11 years old. I feel that unacceptable answer. You know what I mean? That's not a description of what it is. And so, and then it's like, oh, and so looking at where they are at, the teachers weren't well off. And so I'm like, this is not like something I wanted. Like, in my heart, I knew I was meant for more. And the evidence around me indicated that the education path for me wasn't going to be the same like how people around me were experiencing life.
The traditional pathway wouldn't be right.
And so I, ended up dropping out of high school, and I started a business at 17.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I started a business was by fluke, because, my daughter was born, I got a job, $5 an hour, went back to school full time because that's what I thought I should do.
Right.
Go back to high school. And it was, think about $5 an hour. That was the minimum wage back then.
Right.
And trying to, go to school full time and have a job full time. And I'm like, geez, this is never gonna.
Yeah, it feels like you're pressing the gas and the brake at the same time. So you're just exhausted and you don't go anywhere.
It's not gonna work out. Yeah. And I saw this long path, and there was an urgency of getting, like, my daughter had immediate needs. If I went to school, that would be like a 5-year plan or a 6-year plan. My daughter had immediate needs right now. And so I started selling jeans and t-shirts and mixtapes out of my locker in high school. And I realized a very powerful thing. Profit. Now, I would go to Toronto, Montreal, buy pairs of jeans from street vendors, $20, and I'd bring them to Ottawa, right? My high school in Ottawa. They never seen these jeans. I could sell them from my locker for $60.
Okay,
that's
so
a $40
profit.
Yeah, $40 profit with a 10-minute transaction. To me, I didn't even know the word profit, or I didn't know about a business. I didn't know any of this, but I knew that was a better gig for me than going to wash dishes for $5 an hour. Okay. Right. And I said, this I can make work. This is how I can buy diapers. This is how I can make things happen. Right. I made a choice at 17 that I was going to pursue profits for the rest of my life. Now, my business, shortly after high school, I opened a physical location, and it was across Canada, as you know. And so I was looking to, put my money into places, and that's one of those places was buy a house.
So I have a question for you. You're making this profit at that very young age. Now, this is a critical thing for me because usually age also doesn't equate to making the best decisions in terms of savings. So you start making profit. Are you saving that money, or are you blowing
it? No, absolutely not. So my business was doing extremely well. Like I said, I'm all across, my stores are across Canada. And
To
I
be clear,
started,
you're doing a clothing store.
yeah,
You
yeah,
ran a
yeah,
clothing store, right?
yeah.
Okay.
So at 21 years old, like I had made it, you know. Uh, the problem was I had no financial education, right?
Mhm.
At home, no one talked about reserves, savings, managing your credit. Nobody talked about mortgages. Nobody talked about wealth, period.
Right.
And so I ended up mismanaging my money. The only thing I did right was at 21, I had bought that one property. Shortly after 9/11, there was a market correction where people's spending habits changed,
Right.
and it almost took me out completely. And now I find myself like almost at the point of bankruptcy, and sitting at the side of my bed and being completely depressed,
Right.
and thinking to myself, like, I messed up here. Like, how
So
did I get here?
So how are you able to successfully run stores across Canada without, let's just call it business acumen? How are you able to do that? You had
Yeah, so
managers, like you hired the right people,
well,
let's say?
there's people, and this is a really great question because it comes back to mindset, right? There's people that win the lottery, and you can Google it.
And they
See,
lose everything.
yeah, because the
Mhm.
mindset, they have not evolved their mindset to becoming an investor. They're still very much a consumer.
Right.
People get good jobs and spend all the money. People sometimes are an athlete, right? And Mike Tyson, uh, I think, made and lost $500 million during his boxing career. So there's artists, musicians, all kinds
There's
of people
tons of
that have.
examples. Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
it's easy to make money
It's hard
when
to save it.
you fall into a situation when you're making it doing something you love, right?
Mhm.
And so I just happened to be, a hip hop head growing up in the 90s that opens up a shop in Ottawa at the point where it's like hip hop is about to take off. And because there's so much money that was involved, it
Yeah.
was easier for me to make that money.
Right. And the
But
supply wasn't there for the consumers. So you're
yeah,
providing that outlet.
yeah. So
So,
that was the easy part.
right.
What nobody teaches is the ups and downs of being a business. So going back to my bed, at the side of my bed, in
Hmm.
my dark place, I realized that, number one, I didn't know much about business. I
Okay.
wasn't putting money away. No one told me about reserves. The money was just coming in. I was just kind of like
Spending it. Yeah.
spending it. And when there was a market correction, I just simply wasn't equipped. And so at that point, I started reading. So now I'm in my early 20s, like 24. I started reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich. And I just became addicted to all of this information. And I realized that my biggest issue was that I only had one stream of income. Well,
Hmm.
my biggest issue was that I was a consumer. I was not an investor.
So that's
So
the big piece. You're the consumer still, right? You're
yeah,
still a consumer before you're even the entrepreneur. You're still
yeah,
consuming. Okay.
yeah. So like I'm spending my money on worthless stuff, right? Versus trying to buy assets. I saw what the wealthy people do is they accumulate assets that provide income, and then they buy even more assets. Consumers buy stuff, you
Right.
know, values like chains and cars and all of the things that we think rich people do,
They
which
don't.
we don't. They don't, right? And so I
Right.
started to realize that. And then the second thing I said, whew, I only had one stream of income. So I'm subject.
Before you go on further, there's so many like important pillars there. The first one I just have to dissect is you started to actually teach yourself. You got
Yes,
so because you enjoyed the topic and you saw that there was a failing and you needed to pull yourself out of it, right? So that's to me like a big takeaway is that you started to involve yourself and immerse yourself in the things that you needed to learn because you recognized you couldn't get it, from the person down the street. You had to learn it, right? Like
yes,
almost street of the hard knocks, right? Like school of hard knocks in a sense. And the
yeah,
other thing was you started to recognize how wealth was working and what many of us do or don't do to allow the wealth to work. And now that the idea of diversifying, I want you to take a step back totally and explain, as if we don't know what that means, what the act of diversifying means.
Yeah, so the act of diversifying is having multiple streams, right? So when we look at wealthy people, like for example, someone like Steve Jobs, you know him as Amazon, right?
No,
Delivers
he's Apple.
packages.
Bezos is Amazon.
Jeff Bezos, yes, you're right.
Right.
You're right.
All
Bezos.
good. All
So
good.
you know him as, okay, Amazon delivers packages, right?
Hmm.
But if you look at the company, you have multiple streams of income through all
Right.
of the company. He's into media. They bought Whole Foods.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
multiple streams of income, because once if you are subject to one stream of income, when that income dries up, you're done, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is exactly what's happened to a lot of people during the pandemic. They realized their one stream of income. Let's say if you're a restaurant owner and you only had that one stream of income, you're toast, right? You're toast, because now you're closed for a year and a half, whatever the case may be. And so to me, when I realized, you know what, I just only had that one business. It's the equivalent of someone only having a job. An employee, once that employer no longer wants to do business with you, that's it. You're toast. What are you going to do?
Right.
And so what I started to learn is, how do I take the profits and create multiple streams of income? And so what I did for myself, back at 24 years old, is I realized that, number one, the only thing that had gained value was that piece of real estate that I bought when I was 21. Everything else was garbage. Number two, once I started reading about all the wealthy people in the world and what they were doing, I realized that the common thread amongst everybody was real estate. Jeff Bezos has Amazon, but he also owns the real estate. McDonald's sells hamburgers, but they also own the real estate, right?
Yeah.
If you look at anybody that has accumulated any type of wealth, they have real estate. And it's the mixture between business and real estate is what gives the unfair advantage to the 4% versus the 96%.
Correct.
And so
I want to jump in there too, and not make this too much about a patriarchal background, but that's also the conversation that we as immigrants, or we as people of color, are left out of. And we are right now in this really I want to look at it as a positive and a very beautiful sense, that we get to now change that narrative and hopefully create some form of generational wealth and or family wealth that we can pass on and encourage, right? Because we didn't necessarily have that insight, because we had a different reason for coming. We had resilience. We had to survive. We didn't have some of those pieces. So what you're learning is something that somebody from a more dominant culture may have had passed on to them. And it's amazing that nobody gave you that information. You learned that information and you said, hey, this is the key, this is the ticket, and I'm going to make sure I can spread that message to as many people as possible. So back to 24 years old, I just have to, give you your roses. Back to 24 years old, you're doing all this information seeking. You figure out that the one thing that's appreciating the most is your property. And that's the nugget that's planted in you to go further in real estate.
Oh, I changed everything. I sold all of the stuff and I reduced my expenses. And I went back and rebuilt my business. But now it was with a different mindset, right? Everything that I was going to be making, I was going to pour it into the real estate. So I saw how vulnerable I was with the business.
Right.
And I said to myself, I need to build a secondary stream of income that's Armageddon proof, that's indestructible, right? So no matter what happens in the economy, you
have your backup plan that's forever.
Yeah, it's going to come in. And so that's why I chose specifically multifamily, right? Apartment buildings. Because I know that people, no matter what happens, people will always have to live somewhere.
Yeah. You always need a renter, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And that's how I started. Of course, it was a lot of ups and downs, a lot of learning. But what happened to me was, by the time we got to 2008 now, the next market correction, the next recession, I was ready. I was not only ready, but I was able to take advantage of all of the opportunities in that time
and grow further.
I started to expand. And from that time till now, I've expanded the portfolio of real estate, apartment buildings, primarily across Canada.
So I have some questions about that. You just answered one, that it's across Canada. How do you advise somebody to take that risk to buy property outside of their province or state or city? Like, how do you see that process?
Well, first of all, if you're just starting out right now, your next step should not be buying a piece of real estate. Your next step should be getting educated on investing specifically, right? A lot of people go out there and start buying real estate, and not all real estate is good, right? Not all markets are good. You not all fit your life and what you're trying to accomplish. So you need to understand how to identify a deal, first of all, before you even try to look at real estate, because you could be getting into a situation where you could be getting yourself in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for me, it's very simple. I go where the highest returns are, right? I'm not investing for pleasure, for how cute it is, or how nice the flower bed is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm investing for a return. I want to make sure that my money is working extremely hard for me. Because if your money is not working for you, you'll have to work for the money. And so you want to figure out, where is your money going to grow the fastest? Where is your money going to expand the fastest? Where are you going to get the highest return on investment? And so sometimes you have to go outside.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the further you go away from where you live, the more you need to compensate with the amount of units, which serves you to begin with.
Okay.
I found this out very young. It was just logical. A house, you buy a house, you rent a house. That's only one income.
One income.
That's like having one customer. And so when I looked at duplexes, okay, that's two customers. Okay, if I had a business, you would want as many customers as possible, right? And so, imagine opening up a supermarket and only allowing one person in. You would have all of these expenses and only one income.
So let me stop you for a second and inquire about the risk level, because while what you're saying to me logically makes sense, there's a risk involved with having a multiplex as well, having 6 doors or 8 doors or more. What do you do to mitigate, or what do you suggest people do to mitigate any of those risks?
Educate themselves,
Okay.
right? You have to learn first what you're doing. Now, talking about risk, to me, to have a single family house, it's extremely risky.
Okay.
When someone moves out, you're 100% vacant, right? That's risky. I don't know how people sleep at night. If someone moves out of my 36-unit apartment building, that's a non-event for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the risk reduces with the more units because there's more profit. It's like going to Costco. The reason you go to Costco is because you're buying in bulk and you're reducing the price per unit.
Absolutely.
And so that's exactly how it works with real estate. The higher you go in units, the lower the price per unit, making that transaction more profitable.
Right. And so I'm imagining then you have to have a really successful team around you also, because you're not the one necessarily going to be a property manager. Maybe at the beginning you were, but talk to me a little bit about letting people in and giving some of that up so that others can come in so you can do your thing.
If you don't know what you're doing, you open yourself up for a lot of people coming in and misrepresenting themselves. This is why the best thing you could do is get yourself some sort of education. Read a book like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, anything to educate yourself on what it means to be a real estate investor.
Mhm.
Anybody can buy a house. Most people just go out to the realtor down the street or in their family, and they're like, I need to invest in real estate. They're going to show you really great condos and really great houses. To me, you're going in blind, right? You're going in blind, and maybe that realtor is not an investor. It's not investor focused, right?
Mhm.
And he only can show you, even if he has a really good intention of helping you out, but he can only show you what he or she knows.
Right.
And so your job, if someone's watching this right now, your job is to go out and get the education first, so you know what you're doing. So then you can come back and you know exactly the people to hire, fire, manage, and now you can start expanding your business, just
Mhm.
like any other business, right? Like, you can learn on the job, but
Mhm.
that can be costly, or you
Right.
can get some understanding, some understanding of what it means to be an investor. Get yourself a mentor, get yourself a coach, whatever you got to do, and then move forward.
So, I'm a big fan of getting mentors and coaches also, but I'm also very wary because I have made the mistake of asking somebody prematurely to be my mentor. Just the few interactions we had, I was so enamored and I thought this person was like amazing. And I kind of put my blinders on to seeing other flaws that really would have warned me, like, this person's not for you. So, in terms of mentorship, how do you go about solidifying one, or how did you? And if you got a cold call for a mentor, how would you react to that?
Yeah, so I would start by, number one, adding value, right? Like, how can you add value to someone's life?
Hmm.
Like, you're not going to call someone and ask for all their time and then just, and not give anything in return,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes, like, it could be a monetary situation, could be time. Go, you're donating your time to help the organization, or whatever. And,
Right. Right.
I mean, this is what I know. Professionals in any capacity have mentors and coaches, right? Amateurs,
Absolutely.
amateurs, right?
Hmm.
Now, what that looks like for you or for whoever's listening, there's no perfect uh, mentor or perfect coach, right? The only thing that I could say is, uh, reach out to the people that have the results that you're looking for, right?
Hmm.
Someone that does not have a real estate portfolio, that is not an investor, can't help you on investing. That's the worst thing. That's the biggest mistake that people make, is they get advice from their peers
Hmm.
and their family members, and they don't even know what they're talking about,
Right.
right? You want to find the people in your life that have the results that you're looking for, and reach out for mentorship, whatever and however, whatever it takes,
Right.
right?
Right. So I actually want to wheel back because our time is already coming close
I
to an
know, it
end.
was so fast.
It does go so fast, and it's wild that it comes so quickly. So before
We
it
can
does
do this. We can
happen.
do a part two. Don't worry.
Oh, okay, good, good. I'm happy to hear that. But coming from a place of at one point living in poverty,
Yeah.
right? Let's go back to that for a sec. What is something that you used to do that you no longer do because you are no longer afraid of the poverty?
um, I used to be full of excuses. I
Mm.
used to be full of blame, right? It was everybody else's fault. And what changed for me is when my daughter was born. I stopped blaming the world for my problems, and I decided to take responsibility and control over my own life. And the second you can own yourself,
Hmm.
this is when the world will open up to you.
And what's something that you rewarded yourself with? Not a physical, tangible thing necessarily, but to mark a level of achievement for yourself. If you feel you've attained a level of achievement first, is the question, I guess. But what did you do to mark that moment or to mark that experience?
I'm a big celebrator. Like I celebrate the small things and the big things. I every quarter I review what I've done and where I'm going. I guess, the biggest reward that I have ever received, because when I was 17 years old, and my daughter was born, and I remember looking at myself into the mirror and saying, I want to make this little girl proud of me. I want her to say one day, my dad owns the building, not my dad cleans the building or is incarcerated in the building, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the biggest, I guess, moments in my life was way later into my career, and I always, bring my daughters to look at all my the properties that we have, and I say, these are not for you; these are for your kids and their kids and their kids, because we're building generational wealth.
Yeah.
But she had brought her friend, and they were walking down this hallway, and she turned to her friend and she said, my dad owns this building. And it's like, it hit me right there. It's like, gave me goosebumps.
Right.
It's like, whoa, like I've come a really long way.
Yeah.
From, being that brand new father scared to death. Right.
Yeah.
And then I remembered that I wanted to hear those words from my daughter. That's why I did all of this. And that is the power of having a purpose and a why.
Mm-hmm.
Because whatever the goal is, if you have a strong enough purpose and a why, it's going to drive you. And I realized that's what was driving me.
Right. That's such a beautiful thing. And a part of me wants to do like a whole topic just on the purpose and the why. And
yeah.
Do you have a regret, a property regret? Like you wish you would have bought something and you slept on it, or you bought something and you thought it would turn into something?
I get that question a lot. People say, Alfonso, if you could go back to the beginning, what would you have done differently in your real estate career? And I would have leveled up faster, right?
Interesting.
A lot of the times we are a subject of our own
fear,
limitations, right? We're limited on our beliefs and what we can achieve and do. And so we play the game small. And playing the game small will keep you small for a very long time. And you never get the momentum needed to actually grow something significant that can really have an impact on generations to come. And so, I spent a lot of years playing small, and I'm talking about, duplexes and triplexes and fourplexes. And then eventually I had to sell all that to level up, and sell all that to level up. So I would have just leveled up from the very beginning.
That's so interesting, because a lot of us are crippled by our own fears. And then when we actually start to materialize those things, we're like, I could have totally done that years before.
Yeah.
And that to me is one of those lessons in failure, like learning to fail. And I feel like we need to learn to fail sooner rather than, at a different age and then look back on it. And I'm hearing what you're saying, and I still feel like you've been able to accomplish so much. So could you imagine what more you could have had you started bigger, faster?
Yeah.
Which I think, as a parent for yourself, you'll be able to teach that to your kids. Like they have a level of fearlessness in them, I'm sure, that you didn't have because you were figuring it out, right? Like they'll have that fearlessness in them. So, I'm just so pleased that we got the chance to do this, not only because you're a phenomenal person and that you gave me your time, but because I want to give you your flowers now. Like I want to tell you a bunch of things. I do remember meeting you 20 years ago. I definitely do. And I remember your spirit and your heart being so open then, and it has never changed. So even if you've had tough life lessons, even if you've had bad business deals, even if you've had amazing opportunities, that underlining humility that is you, mixed with your drive to succeed, is your secret sauce, I feel. And is it fair that I say that that's your secret sauce?
I think so. I
Yeah.
think so.
I don't want to speak on your behalf, but just in reflection, I do feel impressed by your willingness to always figure shit out, and you didn't become a statistic in the sense that you let a system win. You learned a different system and you played a role, parts of that game that we were never really shown. So for that, I want to thank you for your tenacity. And more so, your willingness to share that with others. Going back to your bio, you speak about it in lectures, you give workshops, you do master classes, you talk about it often. You're willing to share it. And I think that's also a key to wealth, not being rich, but to wealth. Now, this is in a mindset, not just physical bank accounts, but when you're wealthy in mind, you also want others to be wealthy in mind as well, right? So you want to share with them because you realize there's enough for everybody. And that's part of a growth mindset that in just listening to you talk, I hear that and I feel that from you. And this growth mindset is pretty awesome, that the sky is truly the limit and then some.
Yes.
It is.
It's all about, ultimately, I want to be remembered for the people that have helped. You can call me a freedom fighter. I fight for people's financial freedom.
And you take a lot of that from your mom's ability to fight for her freedom and liberties of others as well. So she's definitely instilled a lot in you. I'm definitely going to add to the show notes all of the ways we can connect with you, but feel free to share your socials right now before we end. Yeah, for sure.
Just subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm on there all the time, and hopefully it resonates with you. Subscribe, like, whatever you got to do, and then other than that, just connect with me everywhere. If you can't find me, shame on me.
I love that. I love that. And with that, I want to thank you for making time for It's About Time. We will totally chat with you again and talk about different types of things for sure.
Let's do it.
I appreciate you, sir. And for everybody listening, thank you for your time. This is Zeeta. This is Alfonso Cuadra. You are inspiring. And listen, man, all the best of luck to you in every single endeavor, always.